So you want to learn how to shallow the shaft in the downswing like the best players in the world to help you strike the ball better, eliminate mishits, and add effortless power to all of your clubs in your bag. If that's you, then stick around and watch this video, and I'm going to use a real life example of a student who took himself from a weak slice to a powerful draw in the space of 5 minutes using this drill. So let's just quickly explain what shallowing the shaft is and why you would want to do it. Simply put, as we move the club and the hands up the plane in the backswing, the shaft pitch halfway back should be somewhere towards the ball or even slightly steeper than the ball. We get to the top of the swing, and in the transition into the downswing, the goal would be for the shaft to begin to just shallow slightly. As the hand path starts to move down and out, club head just drops back behind the golfer. And this puts them in a position of great power and in a position where the swing path is nicely aligned for them to be able to swing quite straight into the ball or even slightly into out, which would produce the desired draw pattern that so many people are seeking. And golfers who strive for this shallower, flatter downswing so often fall into the trap of moving the club around them far too flat in the backswing. You'll notice now that this club is not pointing down at the ball or the baseline. It's not pointing down towards in between the ball and my feet. It's pointing way out to the side, and that excessive rolling and flattening of the shaft in the backswing actually contributes towards the steepening that's necessary in the downswing to get the club back on the ball. In the top of the backswing, one of the most common errors that golfers start to make is in transition, you begin to move the hands and the club too far out and start to steepen the shaft. There's a number of reasons why people do it, but it's very detrimental to good ball striking. It's very hard to hit the ball solidly and consistently from that position. You can get away with it a little bit with the shorter clubs, the wedges in particular, the very short irons, but as you move up through the bag, you get into the longer irons and ultimately all the way up to the driver, that steepening move becomes non-functional. There are a number of reasons why people will steepen the shaft in transition. Some of it's to do with incorrect turning rates versus sliding rates. Some of it's to do with how they're organizing the elbows and the wrists at the top of the swing and how they begin to pull on the club in transition. But this drill combines all of the pieces that you need to know into one simple process, so you can begin to start seeing results with this exercise immediately. So in order to protect both your golf club and the wall when you're doing this drill, I'm going to make use of the most versatile training aid on the planet, one of these pool noodles. I've cut about 6 inches here, and I've also cut down the side so it opens up, and I'm just going to place it on top of my club head, and I can drag this along the wall without any worry about damaging either the club or the wall itself. So here's how you're going to do the drill. I've got an 8 iron here. If we do this with a mid iron, we're going to stand maybe a couple of feet away from the wall. Then we're going to set up, and the great thing about this drill, as you take the club back, you should be able to complete your backswing without touching the wall at all. So as I move my hands and club and I begin to set my wrists, this club head should miss the wall. So first off, if you find that you're slamming the club into the wall in your early backswing, you could be identifying a problem there that you didn't realize you had, and one that needs addressing. Top of the backswing, we miss the wall, and now once I'm here in transition, I'm going to push the club head onto the wall, so the foam is now touching the wall. And from the front view, I'm going to keep my lead shoulder, my left shoulder down as much as possible. And from this down the line view, I'm going to start to straighten my arms, keep the club touching the wall until the shaft is parallel with the ground. Another great thing about this exercise is because of the way this foam noodle is on top of this club head, I have to move the club in a way where also the club face is pointing slightly down, and I wanted to take the foam off for you to see that. It's no good you pulling this down the wall and the club face is open or pointing up to the sky. That's going to lead to massive issues with hitting the ball to the right. Okay, so we're working on down the wall, down, 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 shafts more or less parallel with the ground, and the club face is turned down slightly, and that's a function of making sure you've done your wrists correctly. So now from the front view, I've still got my lead shoulder a little bit down, my left knee still flexed and about to move forwards, and from here this would simply be a case now of just turning into impact. I'm going to be able to line up the shaft really nicely, the club face beautifully aligned there. This is really going to help me to get that downswing path and the shallowing of the shaft that so many of you are looking for. And of course, for so many of you, driver's really the reason you came to watch today. Shallowing the shaft with the driver. Just make sure you're standing far enough away from the wall. I'm going to go an extra foot away from the wall. And my backswing, once I'm at the top, I'm going to place my club head, and you'll see I've got the head cover on the driver still here. And now I'm going to keep the club head in contact with the wall as I come down. And again, I'm going to try and get that somewhere near shaft parallel to the ground while retaining the contact with the wall. Doing it very slowly, but I'm changing this downward pattern and learning to keep the club head behind my hands so that when I start to swing faster and obviously incorporate the turns that are so necessary in the downswing, when I start to incorporate those turns, this exaggerated feel of dropping the club deep behind me will actually get lined up really nicely and start to deliver the path and the shallowness that I'm looking for. Driver, you can do this. Irons, you can do this. You just need to monitor and adjust your distance from the wall. So let me share with you a case study of a student I've worked with recently who's been struggling with a fade slice pattern for a really long time. Steepening of the shaft, aware that he swung too much out to in, and worked very hard on trying to swing more into out without really understanding why he couldn't do it. This is a typical pattern I see in so many golfers, capable of playing reasonable golf, shooting in the 80s, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere blowing up and shooting in the hundreds because they just cannot control the ball when it comes to hitting the longer clubs. As we take him up to the top on both of these swings, we're going to see that these are pretty similar. Okay, they're not too different, slightly longer on the right hand side, but the hand path and the depth of the turn there is pretty similar. But on the left-hand side is the old pattern, the all too familiar pattern to many of you of the steepening of the shaft in transition. The club working outside of the plane, coming down, and you know, for a 7-iron, we've got something there that might function, and for a wedge and a 9-iron, it could certainly function. But unfortunately, you know, this wasn't working as his clubs got longer, and it was an extremely inconsistent way for him to swing, resulting in lots of mishits, hitting the ground behind the ball, and lots of weak shots off to the right. In the downswing, having worked on the drill, the down the wall drill, we're going to see how the shaft works beautifully back into the slot there, and as he's turning his wrists down and moving his arms down, we've now got this club beautifully back where it should be. And a real good checkpoint here, which I'll point out, is how the club face is twisted more down towards the ball at this point in time. So rather than on the right hand side here where the shaft, you can see how the club face actually is more open, which was in part responsible for the steepening of his shaft. On the right hand side, the down the wall and the twist of the handle at the same time have produced the feeling that for so long he was unable to reproduce when the ball was in front of him. So down the wall, twist the grip, and you too can start hitting balls like this. These two swings were 5 minutes apart. There were no balls struck between these shots, just a discussion around the lowering of the arms and the twisting of the club face in the downswing. You'll see that the ball on the right flew 10 yards further, and it curved to the left, something that this player was not particularly familiar with seeing. We've gone from over 1600 revs of side spin to the right on the original swing, that's a weak fade to the right, to a nice, powerful, tight little draw on the right hand side. These changes can be made quickly if you understand the movements necessary to create them. So now you've seen the drill, now you've seen the benefit of someone else doing the drill, it's your turn to benefit. Up we go, top of the swing, and in transition, I'm going to move this club down the wall behind me with the shafts parallel with the ground, and just notice how the shaft of my club is somewhat inwards as it was in the exercise where the club would still be more or less touching the wall. It's angled in on this grid line that I've got on the ground here. Up to the top, down to shaft parallel, keeping my lead shoulder down as I do that. As I practice that, I'm also turning the club down towards the ground at the same time. Down to P6, up and down to P6. That's the drill that you're going to practice, that's the feel, and then we're going to hit one. It's a really nice little draw, nicely struck. Finished right on the line there, it's beautiful little push draw. So that feel in the extreme nature of pulling the club down behind me, if that was really what I was doing, would be too much. But actually that feel, once I combine that extreme nature of lowering the club down the wall and I match it up with the rotation of my real swing, I get the right blend to produce the shot that you just saw there. And of course, I know so many of you came here for driver, so up we go, driver, down the wall and twist the club down, the club face down towards the ground. So again, I've got this club very much behind me, more so than I would want in a real swing, but again, to make the point that this is exaggerating that shallowing feel, and I'm combining it with a suitable closing of the face. Once again, when I match up my turns, we should get something that looks pretty good. Yeah, we'll take that. Wasn't completely out the middle, a little bit off center with my strike, but very straight, nice drive, tiny little push draw. So there's two examples there, two tiny little tight push draws produced by having the downswing sequence where I need it, and that's through practicing feels that allow me to shallow the shaft, swing from in to out, match up my turns, and hit shots like that. So what you're waiting for, go grab your pool noodle and your golf club and get working on shallowing the shaft. I'm absolutely certain that this drill is going to unlock the elusive shallowing move that many of you have been struggling to do for such a long time. And the reason I know that is because I see students make changes here every day, working on similar pieces that I know you've been struggling with. So once you've tried this drill, be sure to get down into the comments and let me know how it helped you. While you're there, make sure you hit that like button. The more people that like this video, the more people will get to see this video. And I'm determined to help as many golfers as possible find this elusive shallowing piece, which will ultimately help them hit the bombs that they truly desire. I chose in this video to use a very simple drill, a feeling of moving the club down the wall while twisting the club face closed to unlock that elusive shallowing feeling in transition. But if you'd like to learn more about the mechanics of how the wrists work in the swing, make sure you check out this video right here. And for those of you who want to understand in more detail the mechanics of how the trail arm works and the secret of that transition move in more detail, then you want to go and check out this video right here.